In this video, we'll cover the main skill Helper Boost, which was introduced with the Raikou, and this main skill takes on the type of the Pokemon that has the main skill. So for example, Raikou is an electric type in Pokemon Sleep, and Togekiss is a fairy type. Togekiss has the main skill Metronome, so it just pulls a random main skill and then uses it. And if the Togekiss is using the Helper Boost, it becomes a fairy type trigger. So that's somewhat interesting to bring up in the Helper Boost video. It is going to be very revolved around the Raikou, but Togekiss can also use the Helper Boost main skill as well as Clefable, because they are both Metronome Pokemon. So the Helper Boost main skill is interesting in the sense that it forces you to build a team around the Raikou for it to really gain a lot of potential. The numbers are influenced both by the number of unique Pokemon that share the typing of the Pokemon with the main skill Helper Boost, in this case electric. So the more unique electric type Pokemon you have on your team, then the main skill of the Raikou is going to be boosted. And if you look at the table here, I'll link the resource in the description that I'm using here to read off of. At level 1 main skill, then if you have 5 different electric types where Raikou is one of them, you get an additional 4 extra value on that main skill. Now what the main skill does in itself, like there's a lot of numbers, it varies from 2 to 11, and it is the extra helpful kind of deal where it will produce berries and ingredients and not skills from each and every Pokemon on the whole team, which is contrary to Pokemon like Gallade, where it has the extra helpful, but it's randomly on one of the Pokemon instead of across the whole team. So in a sense, the extra helpful is comparable to the energizing cheer, and Helper Boost is more like the energy for everyone, even boost, and that can be quite strong. So it varies both in terms of the number of unique Pokemon, and then when it triggers, it goes across just the whole team. So each and every Pokemon gets that same number that is added up from the variables. So if you have a Raikou at level 6 main skill, and you have 5 different unique electric types, so each of the Pikachu hat are considered unique. Essentially each Pokemon that has its own sleep style dex page, you can consider it that way. Then the total max here is 11, and so across your team you'll then get 55 extra helps in terms of ingredients and berries every time Raikou procs its skill. Raikou has a fairly low skill rate, but to an extent that is favored, where if you have a very strong skill which triggers infrequently, you'll lose out on less if you don't open the game every second to try to pop it. So that's something to consider. Raikou overall too is the fastest Pokemon in the game. And so across these 3 points here, if you build out a varied electric type team, that can be really strong for you. Almost makes me wish that the Jolteon had the cooking power-up main skill, because then you could run the Pikachu Halloween hat, you could run the Raichu, you could run the Dene, and then you could run Raikou as well as a cooking pot of Jolteon, and just be really prepared for that Sunday strategies. But yeah, the Jolteon is extra helpful, so that's just a little bit of a tangent. So back to the Raikou here. What could be interesting as well is the drop rate here on the number of unique electric type Pokemon is not too crazy, like the drop off rather. So for example, if you have 3 unique electric types, you run Raikou, Raichu, Ampharos, maybe Gardevoir as a healer, and then like Walrein as a berry specialist, that could be pretty strong. And one thing that I was hoping for would be some sort of A-B team setup, to where you you wait to pop the Raikou until you switch teams, where the whole team is just your electric type, like nuanced team. But Brovinnie pointed out in one of his videos, check out his channel in the video description. He pointed out to me in one of his videos that the helper boost main skill from the Raikou is on the server side, and it is calculated based on the team that you have on the field when that skill trigger is like through. Like when the next proc on the Raikou is going to be a skill trigger, the moment that happens is when it looks at the team. Are there a lot of electric types here? And if it's not, then yeah, you won't get to do that AB team setup. And essentially, I was hoping to use the Raikou as a helper whistle, but that won't work. And we'll just have to see what happens with that. It does make it interesting, though, in the sense that Raikou is kind of like the mega evolution of Pokemon Sleep, where you get that one extra super powerful Pokemon, but it does have its limitations. In the main series, you can only have one mega evolution per team. Raikou is considered like a special Pokemon in Pokemon Sleep, and you can only have one special Pokemon at a time. Makes sense. I actually really like that because it puts some limitations on you and you can become more creative with your team building. But it also really forces you to go all in. Once you're Raikou team focused, like you're gonna run the Ampharos and the Raichus and the Dedenne potentially, and maybe a BFS Halloween Cap Pikachu, and maybe the Jolteon as well. Just depends on your overall strategy there. And for me personally, I'm super curious to see what will happen in the future with new islands, because if there is a new area coming up with the electric type berry, I think we'll be seeing a lot of Raikou themed teams, and I think that's going to be pretty interesting. It's a bit of a unique flair to an extent of the new areas potentially in the future. So when it comes to a lot of the math here, it is a bit tricky to really solve, but for the most part, focus on the unique number of electric types. And then if you found a good Raikou, these are the stats of the first Raikou that you got. And then the nature was locked, the sub-skills were locked, and then the ingredient list was random. So if you, in your second and potentially third capture of the Raikou, found something here that was useful, then that could potentially be really interesting. I had a video a couple days ago where it was titled I found my Raikou, but that was actually a troll. My big problem there was the rash nature, I think. Yeah, something like that. It had just a ridiculous list of sub skills, and we can quickly go over them. It literally looked like this. Something like this. I don't remember if the helping speed was before the skill trigger S, but I know for sure that these three here were in like the first three slots, and I was like, oh my god, this is the best Raikou ever. Please don't mess me up on the nature. Please don't mess me up on the nature. And then it did. I also talked to Brovinnie about the Raikou later on too, because I was just so baffled by these sub skills. And he pointed out to me that obviously I like to put the plus here in the sub skill effects, and they are multipliers. But this one right here, the main skill chance down nature, is so detrimental that the overall effect on it is worse than, like, it basically neutralizes the M portion of the sub skill here. So if I am to train up my Raikou that looks kind of like this, then essentially I'm looking at a fast Raikou with a neutral nature with a single skill trigger S. Because that main skill chance down minus 20% is not minus, it is actually multiplied. So it's 0.8 multiplied with 1.36 multiplied by 1.18, and then you get something like 1.2. So you're just like barely above it. But yeah, super unfortunate. If it somehow in the future is introduced an item that gives me a reroll on the nature, like for example, there could be one of the colored mints that guarantees like at least the stat main skill chance up is gonna be there, and then you have a 1 in 5 whether or not it's gonna be neutral after all, or just for the other down potential variables here. And then I can have like a reroll on the nature, and if that is the case, then I have a busted Raikou, because imagine if I had the careful nature on this one. That would be amazing, because then all of a sudden these multipliers are like 1.9 instead of 1.2, just because of that one flick of the nature. And I can't believe it. It was super lucky and unlucky at the same time. So Raikou, definitely an interesting Pokemon. The helper boost, I wonder if will just be a general skill for legendaries going forward. It is likely that the Suicune and the Entei will have this main skill as well. Personally, I'm really crossing my fingers for some sort of ingredient magnet on the Suicune. I think that would be really strong, but most likely because of that one special Pokemon only per team, it is likely going to be helper boost on the Entei and the Suicune too. So we'll just have to see. Because this video is about the helper boost main skill, I just thought I would mention it now that those Pokemon are somewhat around the corner. We haven't really got any dates on it as of now, but I will be covering Suicune and Entei in their own videos respectively once we get more info on it. But for now, this is what we got. So hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a comment if you have any feedback. You can check out the Pokemon Sleep playlists in the video description and subscribe for more content. All right, I've gotten really good at this. I feel happy about that. It's awesome to see that just every time now.